How do we handle Russell Wilson-less Broncos in 2024? Has one veteran tight end found new life in our nation's capital? And what do we make of one rising SEC rookie wideout? Plus, the seventh place finisher in the 2023 FFPC Never-too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament number 3, seventh place finisher, Erik Hove drops by to talk about early drafting tournament strategy in both the NTE tournaments as well as the Fantasy Pros draft and much more. We've got a great show for you. Ferrell Elliott is here. Stick around. I'm Eric Balkman. Your high-stakes fantasy football hour starts now.
Can't stand the pressure. I've seen greater men than these lesser.
Broadcast live and heard around the world, you are now watching the most entertaining hour of radio on the planet. Welcome to the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com with your hosts Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott. The High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour is your home for analysis from the best players in the world. And now, because no one else was available, here are Eric Balkman and Ferrell Elliott.
Solace in the scripture. Are we not all our father's sons? I became a man. Nobody ever told me what a man was.
Greetings and salutations to all you Balkaholics and Ferrelliacs. Thank you to Rob. Welcome to the latest episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. I'm your slightly above average host, Eric Balkman. My co-host is the definitive commissioner of fantasy football, Ferrell Elliott. Coming up on tonight's show, Ferrell and I will nitpick on Dalton Schultz's new landing spot, or new old landing spot, as it were. We're also going to talk about Anthony Richardson in 2024 and the 2023 FFPC Never-too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament number 3. Seventh place finisher Erik Hove will also ruminate on the 2024 rookie class and a ton more. If you want to connect with us on X, you can do so at hsffhour, at Eric Balkman, and always learn more about Ferrell's Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship at KFFSC.com. You can post on our Facebook page at facebook.com/hsffhour2. You can also email the show at highstakesfantasyfootball@gmail.com. If you have any questions for us, now is the time to send them in. We'll try to get to all the chat room questions, tweets, and emails in our fantasy feedback segment coming up later on in the show. Thanks to our audio engineer and my best friend Bryce, and of course our producer and mutual friend Rob. The 2024 Fantasy Pros Championship is live. It's a $1 million grand prize, a $6 million prize pool. Go to myffpc.com to register for that right now. We have live and slow drafts going off. They've been filling up basically for the last 3 weeks or so. You can also go to myffpc.com to play in the Never-too-Early Best Ball tournaments. These two tournaments are going to run all the way up through the NFL draft, conclude on April 25th. They're going to follow best ball slim rules, no kickers, no defenses, 20-round draft, 14-week regular season, single-week elimination playoffs from weeks 15 through 17. Drafts are available with 2-hour, 6-hour, as well as 30-second and 60-second clocks. Take your shot at either a $25,000 grand prize or a $10,000 grand prize today. That's at myffpc.com. And while you're there, don't forget to check out all the Dynasty Orphan teams. We got a ton of Dynasty Orphans available now at myffpc.com. A ton of them have had their prices lowered for 2024, some as low as $1. So you can get some pretty good deals on that right now. If you want to play fantasy football 365 days a year, register for those Dynasty Orphans. Sign up now. A ton of people are picking them up. It's going to be a lot of fun, especially when we get to the NFL draft here coming up in a little bit. People are going to be going crazy for that. Hopefully you can join in all the action as well. In case you missed it on Monday, we had, on Tuesday, we had the second episode of season 9 of the RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown, and I was pleased to sit down with Greg McLean. You might know him as Pay the Manning. That's his FFPC username, a Dynasty champion numerous times over. So I got a chance to sit down with him, talk a little bit about everything that's going on with the rookies, with free agency starting in on Monday, and the proper way to attack this if you are a dynasty owner in order to make sure that you are maximizing the value of your teams and all your assets on them. You can check it out on any of the FFPC socials, including YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter, or X, as well as the RotoViz the RotoViz podcast stream rotoviz.com/podcast or anywhere you get podcasts. Last night, I also got a chance to sit down with a guy many of you have competed with over the years. He is the content manager of DestinationDevy.com at DestinationDevy on X, and of course, the co-host of Dynasty Trades in 5 at Dynasty Trades in 5 on X, DynastyTradesIn5.com. Scott Connor, one half of Chasing the Helmet. He hopped aboard with me for 2 hours, and my goodness, did we get a ton of action in. First half hour, we centered in a lot of the free agency talk, franchise tags, everything going on with that. But we also talked a little bit about the rookies. I shouldn't say a little bit. We talked a lot about the rookies, quarterbacks and running backs, as well as receivers and tight ends. We spent a full hour on that as well. And we wrapped it up with sort of some Dynasty 201, Dynasty 301 stuff as well. So make sure you're checking that out. All the FFPC socials have it, Facebook, X, and YouTube, as well as the Better Sports Network socials. And you can check it out on the internet right now. Watch it on replay whenever you'd like at your leisure. I will tell you what's coming up on those shows going forward. At the end of the show right now, I want to bring in the co-host with the most. It is the incomparable Ferrell Elliott, the commissioner, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football from the Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship. Ferrell, welcome aboard. So glad to have you tonight, man.
Well, Balky, I was peering into a deep, dark black screen, and now here you are positioned in front of a beautiful FFPC logo. You got to warn me when we're moving into a new studio. I get disenfranchised and unsure where I am, and but you're looking good.
Well, you're looking good too, my friend.
Thank
Very
you,
good. Very good. Excited to have you aboard tonight. Tell us about the Combine. How was the NFL Scouting Combine,
Oh,
man?
buddy, I had a mighty fine time. I'm staying the same age and everybody's getting younger. And it's the youth involved in the football business now, the women involved in the football business. I met a female representative practically from every team. There is a aggressive move by some teams to really communicate with agents. And of course, I have something to say, sometimes not about the most famous players, but players that are near and dear to my heart. And so I had some ears that would listen, and we had a good time talking and listening. And, it's just a blast. The guys come in there with a lot of bravado. They get very little sleep. They have a good time, and they limp on home and get back on the road and start scouting players.
Yeah, it's sort of the professional bowlers tour, right? Because that's all these guys do. They grind it out. They work hard for very little money, and they scrounge up a lot of good talent.
No, they're making a lot of money.
They're making a lot of money. Okay,
they're making a lot of money. They appreciate the job. Now, you just described the young scout who is in the business, but he's pretty pleased. He's driving his own car a lot of miles per day and filing in reports. And Balky, we could probably have a year on the 67 cents a mile that the young scouts that work the Rocky Mountain area moving west get. So it's good stuff. But these are jobs that everyone wants to have, is aggressively looking to have, very thankful to have. So yeah, it's a good time.
I get it, and I'm glad you had a good time. We will try to give the listeners a good time tonight, or the viewers a good time tonight for the next 51 minutes. Plus, let's talk about the Denver Broncos here. Sean Payton said Marvin Mims' role is going to expand this year, this according to a report on ESPN.com. The quote from Payton, I really think the only thing that really stopped his progress as a receiver was us and trying to find roles. The key is for us, and I say us as coaches in game planning, is evolving. This is what Payton said when he was talking about young players that need to step up for the Broncos next season. We'll see his role expand. Obviously, Mims did not get a full-time role last season. 22 catches, 377 yards, and a touchdown. However, of the Broncos' 4 pass plays of at least 50 yards, Marvin Mims was on the receiving end of 2 of those. So there is something to like about Mims. I guess the question is, and we'll get into this a little bit with Russell Wilson, the question is, who's the quarterback going to be? And I think like the thing with Mims is we were very excited to draft him last year on potential, but that potential never really came around. Do we trust Sean Payton that he is telling us this at face value, and that Mims role is actually going to expand this year, Ferrell.
Well, I drafted Mims a little bit before the draft. I didn't like the landing spot because already we had seen confusion of how Cortland Sutton and Jerry Jeudy was used, and both of them came in under the number, and I wondered how Mims was going to fit into that. That was very, he had a 100-yard, 2-catch game with a touchdown very early. He showed flashes of brilliance in September, which is what you want from a rookie player, and then he disappeared. 33 targets on the year. It was a wasted year. My beloved little cousin, Stacy Perez, slipped me a piece of paper from there at the beautiful Planet Hollywood where she was drafting her teams. It said, Marvin Mims, Rookie of the Year. And, I give her back a piece of paper this year that said Marvin Mims didn't have a rookie year. He took the whole rookie year off. So who's going to be the quarterback here? Is it Stidham right now? Is that who we're going to say?
Yeah, right now.
And, so there's a guy that's 27 years old that won a game. He started and beat the Chargers this year, and he was competitive against Las Vegas. He's on his third NFL team. Maybe he gets it, maybe he doesn't. But I think we have to take all Bronco receivers right now, Marvin Mims included, in the proverbial caution as we draft.
Marvin Mims, wide receiver 65 at the 14-12 right now. That's Roman Wilson, Adam Thielen, Brandon Cooks, Wan'Dale Robinson territory.
Ooh.
So his role does expand, and you're drafting in the Never-too-Early tournament. That is a good draft value. That value is brought to you by FantasyMojo.com, at FantasyMojo on the X. Darren Armani, the godfather of the Pros versus Joes competition. Anytime we cite ADP on this show, it's always from Darren Armani. So that's the story with Marvin Mims. Ferrell, free agency doesn't start officially, at least the non-tampering period doesn't start until Monday. But we did get a signing earlier this week, and it was Zach Ertz, who ended the year on the Lions practice squad, which means he did not have to wait until free agency started to sign a contract. He signs a 1-year deal with the Washington Commanders, this according to Tom Pelissero from the NFL Network. So here's the situation. The contract is worth up to $5 million. I got to believe he's going to be having to hit massive incentives in order to make $5 million this year. 187 yards and a touchdown in 7 weeks of play last year. And then he went down with a quad injury that put him on injured reserve. Now, 27 receptions in those 7 games. So there's something like about that. And I think Ertz said this week too, like a big reason why he wanted to sign with Washington was that their offensive coordinator is Cliff Kingsbury, who was the head coach of Arizona when he was doing some work out there. Probably going to be a check down guy this year. But Ferrell, if you're drafting in the Never-too-Early tournament, Zach Ertz basically is free right now. 19-11. He's going at that 19-20 turn as tight end 42. I do expect with this news for him to rise up a little bit. Is he rising up enough for you to get excited about him, or is this guy just a fallback in your drafts?
No, with the announcement of his signature, I plucked him in the 19th round of the Never-too-Early, even though I had 2, maybe 3 other tight ends already on the roster. Zach Ertz, so in 2022, he was injury issues. It was MCL tear. I think 2023, there were quad strains that kept him out. He was on the line, so he passed the physical, which means he's healthy. I think when you take a player that's this talented and knows how to position himself on the field, knows how to get between the levels and make a catch, and understanding that we're likely going to have a young quarterback that would need to rely on that type of receiver, I think it's a pretty impressive option in getting Ertz so late. If he had played a full year, which he didn't, but if he had played a full year last year, we're looking at 50 to 60 catches, and he's a groove receiver. He's the kind of guy that if you're playing a too high safety, he's going to get underneath and be open and just turn and catch the ball a number of times. In our 1.5 points per reception, Zach Ertz will score for you in best ball and would be a good plug and play perhaps early in the season. I can't help think of Adam Thielen, who many of us wrote off last year, who went in the 16th round and caught 100 balls from a young quarterback this year on a team that wasn't very good. And I'll say this about Zach Ertz, that he's accomplished a lot in his football career, and he was a well-respected guy coming out of college. There's a lot of things he can do, and his body's been beat up for 4 straight years. He keeps bouncing back. It shows how much he loves football. And football hasn't necessarily loved him on the field, but he's signing up to go to a team which is he got struggles in front of him, but he loves to play. As long as he loves to play, I'm happy to be playing. I'm happy to have him rostered on my fantasy team and give him a shot.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the fact that he's going so cheap right now makes him definitely a guy that you want to buy into at this price. Now, he might rise to a point where it doesn't become a value anymore. But I mean, check down option. Yeah, sign me up for that. He loves Kingsbury. That's the reason he signed here. He could have waited till the start of free agency to sign somewhere. He didn't. He chose to sign with Washington. I think there's a lot to like here when you consider the ADP as well. Okay,
Colin's here.
Colin Hoffman. Yeah, absolutely. He's hanging out with us tonight. Good to have him aboard. I want to talk a little bit about another tight end, Aaron Wilson, reporting that the Texans have indeed re-signed Dalton Schultz to a 3-year, $36 million contract. He signed a 1-year deal with Houston last year and put up 59 catches for just over 600 yards and 5 touchdowns. He missed 2 games last year. He did have a case of the drops throughout the season, but he's being drafted as tight end 15 right now, Ferrell. At the 8-12, he is going behind Goddard and Kmet, but he's going ahead of Freiermuth, Musgrave, and Michael Mayer. Dalton Schultz at the end of the 8th round. Are you on board again in 2024?
I am, and I'm surprised that he didn't slip a little bit behind Musgrave. Maybe that's because of your love for the other tight end there, and everyone's listening to you, which they should. But, yeah, this guy's going to have a better year in this coming year, and I'm all for him. I think that's a great value at that pick.
I want to touch on Russell Wilson real quick because we didn't get a chance to last week. But Ian Rappaport has reported that the Broncos will be releasing Russell Wilson, a spectacular $85 million dead cap hit here. 6,600 yards, 42 touchdowns, and 19 picks in his 2 years with the Broncos. Team went 11-19. He's going to find some place to play. Whether he's starting or not, I think, is the question here. I was talking with our good buddy Scott Connor about this last night, Ferrell, on the road of his on the Better Sports Network High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. And he was saying, like Russell Wilson is quarterback 30 right now in FantasyPros drafts and the Never-too-Early drafts. And once he signs, he's going to move up boards as a starting quarterback. Do you expect him to be a starting quarterback? And if you're reading the tea leaves here, where do you expect him to sign?
Oh, I don't know. That is a huge mystery. The Pittsburgh thing seems attractive. I think he would want to sign with the Raiders. Whether or not they would want him, still to be determined. Could be cases made for him at several places. If I was involved in this Russell Wilson, I would have a better answer to this question, but I would also look to get it done. I wouldn't want it to linger. That would be my number one goal is to get out and find someone who's passionate about it, excited about it, and wants to bring him in. And, whatever missteps he might have made in his Denver job on or off the field, he can assess that and come in a little differently this year too. He's got to be a culture fit. He can't lead the culture of that locker room. He's got to bring a team together. I don't know if he's ever done that before, but after 11-19, you're going to have to do a few things that might be outside of your comfort zone.
That's 100% true. And I didn't know if you had a feel on this at all. I guess really. If you don't have a feel on it, it truly is a mystery. It could be anywhere. Could it be a surprise team, Ferrell?
You never know, because when you begin to see who makes the market, how affordable he is, and just what he's willing to do. And, you go back to Russell Wilson when he came out of college. There was not a person that took a meeting with Russell Wilson that was not amazed with all his intangibles, and he can make them amazed again. So I think I think if you're the agent here, you get the Russell Wilson person, you turn back the clock and you bring him in and let everyone get to know him in the room, not him by the reputation. And then I think you're going to make a good decision, and so is the team that signs him. So, as usual, Scott Connor, he's interesting when he came here and drafted, and I love the way he drafts because he's got his own mission. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. He'll tell you when he did wrong. He'll talk more about his mistakes and the things he does. But one of the things I like about him is, when you go through a draft, Balky, and you're getting in through the 15th and 20th round, some guys are stretching out a little bit. Some guys are having a beer. Some guys are getting a little relaxed. He's more intense then than he was at the start of the draft. Yes, focus. Yep. That's why they're 20 rounds, guys. Just keep focused.
We're going to focus in on our guest right now. I'm going to bring him on. He is the 2023 FFPC Never-too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament number 3, 7th place finisher. He's already off and running in a bunch of the Never-too-Early drafts this season. You follow him on the X machine at Erik Hove 2. Erik Hove, welcome aboard the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. So glad to have you on. Thanks for spending part of your Friday evening with us, man.
Awesome. You're welcome, guys. I'm very excited to be here, humbled to be asked, and happy to chop it up a little bit.
Absolutely.
I love it. You sound just like an air traffic controller coming in on your headset.
Now, Erik, I should have asked you this in the emails we were exchanging back and forth. I got your last name right. It's Hove, right?
You did. You got it perfect. Yep,
okay,
that's it.
Perfect.
Well, how can you mess that up? It's Hove.
I know.
If it had an A, it would be have. What do you it's Hove?
You're right. You're absolutely. Sometimes I overthink these things.
What'd you cook breakfast on, Balky?
A stove. I cooked
there you
it
go,
on
baby. You're on a roll now.
All right.
We're going to get the rest of it right.
So let's get the easy question out of the way, Erik. When you are not playing in all these FFPC tournaments and cashing in them, tell the viewers what you're doing for a living.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm a finance guy. Probably not too surprising. It's probably pretty common in this space. Love the data, love the numbers. So I'm in finance for Fortune 500 tech company. Manage a team. We do like commercial deal review within kind of business to business. So.
And it plays
you're
into
collecting trophies. You're collecting football trophies too, and I like that.
That's
yes,
right.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, whatever side it's on. I got just a home league trophy. We got a home league running, just a little kind of weird format keeper league that we've been doing for about 10 years since my college days. So got that back there. I did win that this year, so I got it on the mantle for now.
Beautiful.
Ferrell, let's talk about the Never-too-Early tournaments.
Well, yeah, I'm drafting in them. I hope I'm not drafting against you. You appear to be a guy who knows what he is doing. I've noticed that a lot of the early drafts, all the guys have stars by their name, which in Balky's definition, that would mean they won a boatload of money. My boat's a little small. But nevertheless, I don't go in with a set strategy. I look at one draft and I say, I like the way things are lining up here, but, I'm doing the slow drafts. What are you doing? And do you come in with, this is what I'm going to accomplish in this draft. This is the way my roster is going to look. These are the guys I'm targeting. Or do you just kind of let it flow to you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd say some of both. I love, part of what I love about fantasy football is the game aspect. It's almost like a puzzle trying to figure out how you put the pieces together and how to approach a draft. And coming into 2024, the thing that stood out to me the most is I'll get to round 15 or 16 and I basically don't like anybody at running back or tight end or quarterback. And so I'm like, well, so these 4 or 5 slots on my roster, if I get here and I feel like I really need one of those players, I feel like I'm kind of out of luck. And so I've probably more so than other years, I still value wide receiver a lot. So I'll still have, a good 3 or 4 that I really like from the first, 8 or 9 rounds, but then I'll usually hold off a little bit and then to save those last 4 or 5 picks, mostly for receivers. I mean, I'm dabbling other places, but that's been kind of my general approach that seems to fit and work well so far.
So yeah, I always feel that I can find good wide. When the draft ends, I still have wide receivers in my queue that I would have loved to have had on my team. When you get to those later rounds, do you find yourself favoring vets or the younger guys?
Pretty much all younger guys. I have probably 2 or 3 of the vets that I like back there, but other than that, I just feel like I look at the board and I'm like, these are guys I'm seeing mocked in the second round of NFL drafts, and they're sitting there in rounds 16, 17, 18, 19. And I'll take those all day. I'll just take those bets and hope for the hit, hope for a good landing
Maybe
spot.
we'll talk about some of those favorites. So
All right.
So Eric, when you're talking about that's the approach you have in these drafts, and you're trying to get the puzzle pieces to fit, how does the tight end premium aspect fit in with that? Like, how does that make the pieces bigger, smaller, easier to fit, harder to fit? How do you handle the tight end premium format?
Yeah, it's a good question. So I feel like this year is totally different than last year. Last year, the Never-too-Early. I wouldn't say that I was hammering all these guys, but like I had a good bit of, Dalton Kincaid, good bit of Sam Laporta. I mean, before the draft, they were going like round 17, 18, which is crazy to think now, but they were going super late. I had a ton of Trey McBride, which honestly I was worried about at the beginning of the year once Zach Ertz was back and catching all these passes. I did not know if that was going to work out, but thankfully it did. But this year going in, I like to mess around, do my own rankings. Obviously, a finance guy, so I got my fun spreadsheets. And after about tight end 10, I was like, I don't even know who I want to rank here, who I want to take. And so because of that, I've really leaned into kind of elite tight end. So I almost, again, it's not a firm rule, but I would say most drafts I'm coming out of the first 6 or 7 rounds with at least 2 tight ends already locked up, so that I can be a little more picky with tight ends late.
If I think, guys, that I'm in a draft and I have an elite tight end already, and then I see that there's a couple of them left and the teams on either side of me that are drafting have left that position alone, I might take the second swing at the tight end because I love pushing those guys. There's a demarcation point after your elite and then your second group, and I think we had Ingram in that second group last year. We would count him among the elites next year. But do you ever spend a lot of time looking at the board and saying, this is the way it's going, so I'm going to try to trip some of these guys up? Because after all, in this Never-too-Early, we're trying to get out of this 12 team league that we're in.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's certainly important. I definitely look in terms of trying to see what might get back to me. I don't know if I necessarily make decisions thinking about what would help or hurt them, but I certainly like, going around a turn. If somebody doesn't have tight ends and I want another one, I'll usually take it before we go around the wrap. So I certainly look at the board a lot. And I do, I will say, and I've been there where I've gotten boxed out before, but I do like when I look and there's a team or two that doesn't have one through like 8 or 9 rounds. And I'm like, I feel pretty good that, I got a pretty good chance to beat them this time.
Well, okay. Well, what's intriguing about these young receivers then? Let's get back on point because you like talking about the young guys. You can speak specifically about them, anybody that you do like. I'm much more familiar than I was a couple weeks ago. Balky talks to me about going to the combine. I'm doing a lot of things at the combine. I'm doing everything about it except watching the players. I have to first, then I have to come home and watch the combine. I go to the combine, I come home and watch the combine on television. And yeah, you can get a lot, and it goes much beyond watching those 40-yard dashes. What did you see? What's important to you? Who do you like? Just give us a general rundown on what you find intriguing about these wide receivers.
Yeah. So I can definitely tell everybody that Eric and Ferrell do their homework beforehand. They sent me some questions, and they were all hitting on the rookie wide receivers, and I was like, yeah, I have drafted like all these rookie wide receivers, so that's a good question for me. So I was double checked, and I think 10 of my top 15 receivers I've drafted are all rookies, so I certainly got the rookie mania. And I know a good bit about them, profiles and all that. Like, I'll be honest, a lot of it is just I think the prices on them are just too low compared to what we might be, buying them for in 2 or 3 months after the draft. And again, you never know when guys are going to, rise or fall from projected draft capital, but I feel like this group has been pretty locked in of like, there's going to be a good 8, 10, 12, maybe even more guys that go in the first 2 rounds of the reality draft. And, to me, if I can get some of those guys, late over on FFPC right now, I'll take advantage of that. So I haven't been too discriminate. I've taken a lot of them. And just looking historically, I feel like guys that go first, second round in the NFL draft are going to be going higher than this later.
Fair enough.
And I think that's important, Eric, because the people I've talked to about this, Scott Connor's one of them who I was just talking to last night. And he focused, I don't want to say focused in on receiver, but definitely rookies. Like, these guys are all going to jump up the ADP. They're all going to jump up the draft boards after the NFL draft. And he knows he's going to miss on a few of these guys, maybe even more than a few. But because of the value that you can get late on these guys right now, prior to the end of April, it makes it like a perfect opportunity to build some dominant squads in the never too early draft when you're taking all these rookies like you've been doing this year. You've taken a ton of rookies, and I think it's probably going to pay off for you.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. And I think the exciting thing about the rookie receivers in particular too, and this is mainly borrowing from Pat Kerrane at Legendary Upside, but especially in the last couple of years, like in the NFL, like when a receiver gets drafted in the first few rounds, even through round 3, by the end of the year, I mean, they're running most of the routes. So even if you draft a guy that's like kind of a bust, I mean, if he's a bust in round 17 or 18, I mean, if he's not good, but he's running 80% of the routes for the team, like you still got a shot in best ball that he might show up in your lineup. So I feel like the floor on these guys is higher than people realize too.
And who said that? Kerrane?
Mm-hmm.
Pat Kerrane.
Yeah, I've never heard of that guy.
Yeah.
Come on. Let's talk about one rookie running back, Eric, here. And we'll get into some more rookies here. But the first rookie running back I want to bring up, Jonathan Brooks. So this is a guy that says he's going to be ready by training camp. I thought I saw July 1st as a date he's floated out there. He tore his ACL in November from when he was at Texas. Probably was going to be the number 1 running back in this class had he been healthy. Now he's not. Now he may not be the number 1 running back. How concerned are you? And let's focus this on the Never Too Early tournament, focused on 2024 redraft leagues. How concerned are you about this ACL recovery for Jonathan Brooks?
Yeah, it's a great question. I've taken a lot of Jonathan Brooks. It's kind of weird. On one hand, he's like the riskiest running back because he's coming off, the ACL injury. You don't know when he's going to be back. On the other hand, like the fact that everybody seems to be consensus that he's, the best running back, and a lot of his price being, deflated just because of that injury risk. The fact that I can get him in, round 10, round 11, if you get lucky in a draft in round 12, like that's a price where you're kind of hoping that you just have a guy that comes on late that can score a few, 20-point weeks down the stretch, and that's a huge hit. And I just feel like his profile is great in terms of the, size plus pass catching. And I'm pretty confident even with the injury, he's going to get round 2 or round 3 capital. So I think an NFL team will want to put him on the field as soon as he's ready. So just all those combinations have kind of led me to him. I wouldn't say I'm like anti the rest of the rookie running backs. I have a decent amount, but not nearly as much as the wide receivers, just because, frankly, it's just very volatile. Like the receivers, I kind of, a month or two ago that I kind of thought were going to be projected in the same draft range. They kind of still are now, whereas the running backs, it's kind of bounced all over. So I got some guys that I've got, great value on, some guys that have been not so much. So they're just harder to pin down.
Well, we talked about Marvin Mims to start the show, and there's a player that I said I liked him. His 3rd round draft pick. Or was he the last pick in the 2nd round? Either way, he was in the top 70 players drafted, but I didn't like anything about his landing spot. And running back situation is worse. If you get a bad landing spot, it's rough. But here in Kentucky, I live in Louisville, and University of Kentucky just down the road. And I remember when they signed through the NIL portal Ray Davis. And, a lot of people have been talking about college football. It says NIL, all this is ruining college football. Well, it's wonderful for college football players. And Kentucky hasn't had a running back like this in 30 years. And so it was good for them. And he's been successful wherever he's gone. Temple, then Vanderbilt, then Kentucky, 1,000 yards. He's going up the SEC and college football food chain. This is a rookie player that I drafted 16, 17 round. Balky, I wonder what Darren has on Ray Davis. But is this one running back that might be in your wheelhouse?
Yeah, I've been drafting some Ray Davis as well. He's a fun combination of, like you said, the ADP right now is not too high. He's got size. He caught passes. I mean, he just did everything at Kentucky. You certainly know more than I do from just my little bit of study and watching a few highlights. But yeah, he looks the part in terms of being able to do all the stuff you want an NFL back to do. So the biggest question with him is going to be the draft capital. I mean, I think if you can get him, round 4 or even a little bit earlier in the reality draft, that would be a huge home run. And,
I love that term.
Yeah.
I love
Reality
that term,
draft.
reality
I do
draft.
too.
I'm going to get some T-shirts done.
There you go.
And we're going to have to walk back one of your statements because Balky and I try to stay 100% pure and true on all Friday nights between our 10 and 11 o'clock. I don't know what Balky's doing during the rest of the week, but on Friday night between 10 and 11 o'clock, we're trying to come. And you said, I know more than you. We're going to walk that back. We're not going to say that because it's not correct. And we're not going to have that happen here. So we'll recant that immediately before we move on to your next commentary.
So it's been recanted. I just posted Ray Davis 1603 in the Never-too-Early tournament. Running back.
That's about where I got him.
So it makes sense. He's going behind Keaton. He's going behind the Mitchells, Keaton and Elijah, and he's going ahead of the JK and the AJ, as in JK Dobbins and AJ Dillon. That's where Ray Davis is going in the Never-too-Early tournament. Let's talk about Jatavian Sanders. Everybody. I feel like on all my shows that I do, I want to talk about Brock Bowers with everybody, Eric, but nobody wants to talk about any other tight ends. I thought I'd bring up Jatavian Sanders tonight. For some people, I don't know if he's the number 1 tight end for anybody, but I do know he's the number 2 tight end for plenty of people. How much of an impact do you think he's going to have in his rookie year this season?
Yeah, it's a good question. Certainly after last year, it's hard. We hit the lottery in terms of all the rookie tight ends that hit, which historically has not happened in fantasy. So it's certainly a risk. There's definitely the kind of recency bias kicking in. I've taken some of them just from the fact that a little bit of a mystery box, athletic. After the combine, he didn't quite smash like I was hoping. So I don't know if the round 2 capital's a little shakier than I expected, but I do think, a worst case, he's going to go, probably late round 2, early round 3. So you're hoping that a team's got him in his plans, that he's athletic, and that he'll catch some touchdowns and be an impact down the stretch. So I think right now he's a good value, at least, to me. I think I've even seen him. I think I'm in a draft right now where he's in there in round 15, and I've already taken a lot of tight ends, so I'm trying to figure out what to do there. But when he falls, I think he's a nice, fun upside swing at tight end.
I'm tempted to talk more about tight ends. Maybe we'll get to that. We're going to need to talk about quarterbacks, though. And I don't think we should. Jaden Daniels and Drake May. These are my 2 mystery quarterbacks. I seem to know the rest of the guys better. What can you contrast and compare these guys? Can you project a landing spot for them? Is there one that you think could be the next coming of what we might call an immediate fantasy football point producer? Who do you like amongst those 2?
Yeah. So I like both these guys. I think the combination of them being mocked, hopefully going number 2 and number 3. It seems like the Drake May. There's like a roller coaster. Like one day you check Twitter and he's like the consensus number 2 pick, and the next day you check Twitter and he's like he might fall to number 8 or whatever. He might go to the Giants and never start. So like I feel pretty confident just with his pedigree, how much everybody's talked about him the last several years. I think he's going to be the 2nd pick, and he'll be there in Washington. And then Daniels will be either a Patriot or whoever wants to trade up and give them a bounty of picks. So the fact that they're both going to be very high draft capital picks, they both coming in with rushing prowess. I do think Daniels is a little. I think for 1 year, I feel good about him. I feel a little shakier just in terms of kind of a slight frame. There's some funny highlights there on Twitter of him getting blown up by defenders with his crazy running style. So I think he's a little riskier bet, but I think they're both going to make some. Some money for you on the ground in terms of generating some fantasy points. And Drake May in particular, I think he's kind of got a build and a history of being able to air it out. So I think for fantasy, they both could be pretty fun.
Have you, and I know you play a ton of Never-too-Early stuff, Eric, but with your knowledge on rookies, have you ever considered playing in dynasty leagues to put this to good use where you can really make a lot of cash in addition to the Never-too-Early tournaments? Because you're very well spoken, and we understand that you get the rookies quite a bit here too.
Yeah. Oh, I appreciate that. I have not really dabbled too much in dynasty. I did just like 2 years actually, and I got actually their shirt on. I'm a ship chaser, but they did their own like kind of internal dynasty league that we did for a couple years. Unfortunately, it was awesome, but it was like a multi-league, huge endeavor, and I think it just became too much to manage, so we had to shut those down. But it was a fun experience. I'll have to chat with you after about these dynasty leagues you can make a lot of money in, because that's been the main thing. Is that there's been not as many of them that I've kind of found that I've fit
Eric,
into, maybe I'll get into those.
You haven't enjoyed football and fantasy football, and you haven't led a complete life until you've adopted a family of FFPC dynasty teams. Much like your trophy, you'll sit down on the couch with your dynasty teams, and you'll have a fulfilled residence in football that will mean something to you.
I will say this about dynasty, and you can take this for what it's worth. For a lot of people, it's not a big deal. For me, part of the reason I like it so much is you find out towards the end of the season, even if you're stinking, you have a chance at the number 1 overall pick, right?
Yep.
So that's always fun. Then you kind of forget about your team and who you have on your dynasty team until like February and March rolled around. You're like, hey, I should check to see who I got on this team. So it's sort of like another draft, because you're like, oh, I got this guy and this guy and this is great. And then you actually do the rookie draft, which is another fun thing. And then redraft takes over, where you're just drafting all these teams all summer. And then you realize, oh, I got to submit waivers and set lineups for week 1 in these dynasty teams. Gee, I wonder who I had on these dynasty teams. And then you go back and you look at them again, like, oh, so it's like, you're kind of like, I know it's only one team, like, but it's like opening up your Christmas presents 3 times a year. At least this is how it is for me. Because unless I'm getting trade offers or sending trade offers, I kind of forget who's on my dynasty teams.
We had a guest 2 weeks ago with 80+ dynasty teams that could tell you his roster from every dynasty.
And that's that. I mean, he's a psychopath, clearly.
And so could Eric. Oh, Eric, where are you from? Where do you live?
I'm from Atlanta, Georgia.
Yeah, that's just right. See, it's a good Southerner.
Yeah, he is. He absolutely
nonstop flights to Louisville, Eric. That's all I'm saying.
Yes, and we'll have to check that out for Louisville for Kentucky Fantasy Football State Championship coming up in August this year. Ferrell, before you have to ask the last question, no, it's on me again. I'm sorry. So before I ask my last question, I do want to get a couple of emails out here to you, Eric. This first one's from Vern in Port Orange, Florida. Hi, Eric. David Njoku did most of his damage with Joe Flacco and not Deshaun Watson. How do you handle him in drafts this season? That's a good question, too, from Vern in Port Orange, Florida. Now, if it's my understanding that Flacco, if he comes back to Cleveland, he will be the backup. He won't be the starter. And Njoku, like, again, you saw this guy crush it, but he was crushing it mostly with the backup quarterback there and not Deshaun Watson. Eric, he's going as tight end 9 at the 602 in the Never-too-Early drafts right now. Is that a good spot for him? Is that too high?
Man, that's a great question. That would be one to, every year there's like a few things I wish I knew the crystal ball answer to, because that would be a fun one to load up on. I've been buying, again, somewhat structurally, but also just buying into the talent more than the situation. Just thinking that, I think Stefanski's pretty sharp. I do think it kind of never came fully out as to what was going on, and I know Watson certainly has a lot of valid reasons for us to be detractors, but I do think there was some kind of injury situation hampering him for parts of the year. So hoping that that's playing into it and that they can find that connection. So I think I'm a buyer. I think I'll buy into the talent of Njoku and tight end 9.
Njoku going behind Bowers and Kittle. He is going ahead of Pitts and Ferguson right now. One more email here for you. It's from Trevor in New York City. What's up, Mr. Hove? How do you feel about Kyren Williams at the end of the first round this year? Thank you for the email, Trevor. Thank you for the email, Vern in Port Orange, Florida as well. So Kyren Williams is going, he has an ADP right now, Eric, of the 202, basically the same spot as Jonathan Taylor, just ahead of Devon Achane. And he is going as the 6th running back off the board. How do you feel about that? I feel like Kyren Williams is a guy that's a really tough guy to get a handle on based on his athletic pedigree, but you throw into the mix what he was able to do actually on the football field as a football player last year. Can't really deny that. Kind of a conundrum for me. How do you feel about him?
Yeah, no, I agree. It's probably one of the players I've thought about the most, and you kind of waffle back and forth with all the pros and cons. I've been a buyer. I I'll say like last year, the whole like end of the first round, early second round, like I basically was all receiver. Like I didn't touch like any of the running backs there. I've been kind of the opposite this year. I like Gibbs, I like Kyron, I like JT, HN. I'm trying to think who I'm missing. Probably those four guys. I like all those guys. I think they're very talented. Going back to Kyron, I think I'm just going to buy in that McVay tends to like to have a guy proved that he really liked Kyron as the guy. Kyron could, score in short yardage. He could catch passes. This is getting really into the weeds, but like I think like they're bringing Ronnie Rivers back. I think they're going to give Zach Evans a chance, even though he didn't play. I mean, they kept him on the roster all year long, so I think they're kind of invested in him. So I kind of think they've got the running back room mostly full. I think they'll add somebody else, but I don't think they'll be like a big splash signing. And so I feel pretty comfortable that'll be the case. I could always be wrong, but I've been buying some for sure.
And he's done it. You got to believe in what you see. Then some of these guys have done it in flashes. This guy's done it consistently.
Do you feel like he's being drafted at his ceiling right now at the 202, or does he have the chutzpah and the talent in him to actually outperform that end of the first, start of the second round ADP?
Yeah, I think he can outperform it. I think some of the risk is baked in that he, it's going to kind of get sabotaged between now and the start of the season with, somebody added, not have the role. But I think if he has the role, I think he's clearly a value there at the, kind of early second round.
Eric, let me ask you here, getting back to the rookies here. Are there any rookies that you know of or that you know enough of at this point that you know what, I'm out on these guys for the 2024 season?
Yeah, there's been, like I said, I've drafted a lot of them, so there's not many. So probably the two, I would say, one running back and one receiver. I have not been taking much Braylon Allen. I'm not a film guy. I do like to watch all the highlights and all that, and he's a guy that I just wasn't crazy impressed by, and it just feels like all the kind of guys that I follow and trust in terms of the prospect evaluation seem to see the same thing in terms of huge, big size, young, fast, but like when you just watch the tape, it doesn't seem like he's actually breaking many tackles, not catching many passes. And so he's been a guy I've been a little bit lighter on. I think so far it's worked out pretty well. I think he's fallen a little bit, so I might eventually dabble, but he's been one guy. And then one guy I haven't been on, but I kind of wish I had a little bit of is Xavier Legette. Again, just not productive through most of his college years until the very final year, which tends to not be a great signal. But he tested out of the roof at the combine, so I might have to hop in and get a few shares.
May I ask a late question?
Go. Before you do, let me just let the listeners know Braylon Allen, running back 45 right now at the 12-10 in the Never-too-Early FFPC Best Ball Tournament. Xavier Legette, wide receiver 70 right now. He's going at the 15-10 by Demario Douglas and Quentin Johnston. Oh my God, Quentin Johnston! Remember him? Go ahead, Ferrell. Ferrell, go ask your question.
You are in Atlanta. Are you a buyer of the youthful Atlanta players at tight end, running back, and wide receiver at their current draft spots? And you've been drafting, that Robinson is an elite number one running back. Drake London is a fourth round receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Correct.
And Pitts is a fifth round tight end, bulky, or is that
six?
Yeah, he's been six. Yeah.
So are you buying in at all those price points on your Atlanta Falcons?
Yeah, I am. In terms of what I've actually bought, I have not bought as much Drake London as I probably would have wanted to. I think there's a really fun pocket of receivers there at kind of the end of the third, really through the fourth. You can get some guys that fall, but I love Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, Neighbors, like that whole tier of guys. I think it's a great group of receivers. So London's kind of in there, so I haven't quite moved him up probably as much as I should. But yeah, I'm a believer. I think everything I've heard about Zach Robinson kind of here in the local beats, pretty optimistic folks are feeling about.
I think you would have to be.
Yeah.
Now, we had a polarizing running back. Here's a veteran question. We had a polarizing running back two years ago in Josh Jacobs. And Balky and I advised people to draft him, and they did, and they won. They did well. Balky, was he going as late as the 7th and 8th round at one time?
2 years ago, yes. Yeah, 7th round for sure. Yes.
Last year, we decided that he was overpriced after that big year, and we were correct for a variety of reasons. We don't know Josh Jacobs' landing spot yet, but he's going in the middle of the 5th round, and I think any landing spot that he ends up at will be as beneficial. And even if he were to return to the Raiders, that would be a better Raider situation than it was last year. Your position on Josh Jacobs?
Yeah, I've taken him, I think, once or twice, so I'm probably a little below the market. Yeah, he's a tough guy. It's definitely gotten to the point where he's a guy maybe, a year or two with this profile might have been, going in the, late second, early third round, even without a landing spot. And I would have been clearly out. Now that he's in the fifth round, I think the value is starting to get there. So it's close. I've been leaning into tight end a little more there, mainly because I've been, kind of taking a runner back kind of in that, 1-2 turn area and then just waiting a bit. But I definitely can see the appeal.
Very good.
It is. It's quite interesting there because Jacobs is going smack dab in the middle of Kincaid, Engram, Bowers, Kittle, and then a little bit before Njoku too. So if you are looking for a tight end there, that is a good spot to get him at. Ferrell, I can let you have at the last question here before we let Erik Hove enjoy his weekend, my friend.
Oh, buddy, let's stick with veterans because you love every rookie, and you've already told us.
Not every rookie.
Yeah, you love every rookie. The Allen guy, you were still drafting. You could. So you love every rookie.
I just checked that little box up on the top right. Rookie.
Yeah, they have all the rookies. Well, you're missing a tight end, though. You guys are missing a tight end. And maybe Balky, and I'll get to that later. Okay, amongst veterans, who's somebody you won't touch? Who's somebody you have to have?
Won't touch and have to have. I'll actually start with the have to have because it's on the top of my mind.
You're a positive guy. You see, Boggy's a positive guy.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. I would say Breece Hall is a guy that I am just kind of over the moon to draft. Everything we saw last year with the profile coming out of college, I think it just all sets up to him just being a tremendous pick. I think the only thing that could hold him back is I'm still a little shaky just on the Jets organization overall, coaching staff, O-line, that kind of thing. So there's a little bit of team risk, but I think beyond that, he's just absolute smash pick. So I'm going to do all I can to be overweight on Breece. Trying to think of a guy that I just not touch. I'll probably go. It's probably a common answer, but I might have to go with Quentin Johnson. Part of it's personal burn. I'll admit I had a ton of Quentin Johnson last year. Again, I had a lot of rookie receivers, so overall it panned out all right.
Why did you like Quentin last year?
So, again, just a combo of landing spot and again perceived talent, which did not show up. But,
Quentin. He's still the same guy.
That's the problem, Ferrell. He's still the same. He's still the same Quentin Johnson. That's the problem. We need him to be somebody new. Erik, so much fun to have you on tonight. A ship chaser, a real life ship chaser, right on our show. We love it.
In the flesh.
We will continue to follow you on the X at Erik Hove 2. We will continue to follow your exploits in the Never-too-Early Best Ball tournaments for sure. And congratulations on your success last year. I hope it continues into this season as well. Thanks so much for making us a part of your Friday evening. Really enjoyed it, learned a lot, and you were very entertaining as well. Thank you so much, sir. We will talk to you again very, very soon.
You're welcome. Appreciate it, guys.
See you, Erik.
That is Erik Hove. Follow him on the X at Erik Hove 2, the 7th place finisher in the FFPC Never-too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament last year. 7th place overall. Congratulations to him. I do have a couple of emails that we can get to here, Ferrell, tonight. Well, first of all, let me ask you this. We didn't get to it with Erik, but you keep alluding to this tight end conversation, this rookie tight end conversation. Mm-hmm. And I feel like you really want to talk about it.
You got something to say, huh?
Who is this rookie tight end that you think we should be talking about?
6 foot 8 inches, 259, 65 pounds somewhere. It depends on what he had for lunch.
Is that a tight end or a power forward, Ferrell?
Theo Johnson, Penn State.
Theo Johnson,
Penn State. And he turned in a marvelous performance. Everyone was talking about him at the combine. I came home and watched it. I watched it again. I couldn't believe how he was moving. And I looked, he only caught 30 passes at Penn State, and that's why he's not on everybody's radar yet. But what he did is he lined up all over the field. And they were largely a rushing team. They relied on him to block. So, he can block, which means he's going to get on the field and stay on the field. And I just would really love this player to land somewhere. that would put a player this size in a variety of positions on the field and let him enjoy mismatches. And I think he has he proved at the combine he has the athletic talent to do it. So, if you, like we talked about, the combine's more than watching guys run in a straight line. This guy did that well, especially for his size, but he did everything else phenomenally.
This is a player that had the second highest possible relative athletic score value as a 9.99 achiever at the combine this year. I know we had a 10 last year. I think it was Zach Kuntz had the perfect 10. But this is insane. 9.99 is the elite of the elite. So if you are drafting on measurables, especially late, because I don't think he's going to be a very sought after guy in Dynasty, for God's sake, in the Never-too-Early Best Ball Tournament, the FFPC right now, he's a 1920 pick. Like that's where he's going. So take a chance on athleticism there for sure, and make sure that you are getting some shares of Theo Johnson this year. Ferrell Elliott recommends. Okay, let's do this. An email from somebody named Eric in Appleton, Wisconsin. No idea who that is.
Spells it with a K, probably.
No, yeah. Sounds like a handsome fella. That's all I can say.
Of course.
He writes, "Hey, guys, what do you think of that receiver from Florida, Ricky Pearsall? Thanks. We appreciate the email." Eric in Appleton, Wisconsin. Ricky Pearsall is an interesting guy, Ferrell, coming out of the SEC. Do you have any thoughts on him, both for we can take this wherever you want, redraft or dynasty?
Part of what we said that we had to do this year was find the next Puka. And I think this guy might be it. Late September, I went to Lexington, Florida Gators. Kentucky managed to beat them. We celebrated that terrifically until we realized that the Gators weren't the Gators of old. But this guy stood out. He then at the 40 at the combine, he ran very, very well. He was another NIL guy, came from Arizona State. Very smooth getting in and out of his breaks. That's what you can see about him in his play film. He consistently caught about 60 passes. He's the kind of guy that in college, you look at him and say, this guy will be a more productive pro than he was in college. And you can see that play speed. And, when you go to Cooper Kupp, he ran in the 4.6s at the combine. Puka ran in the upper 4.5s, but their play speed is significant and much better than that, especially in Puka's case, because they clocked him running 20 miles an hour a couple times during this season. My point is that I think this player is very, very polished. He plays a lot like Michael Pittman, which would attract me to him. The one thing that's a little bit different is he's got a better speed element than Pittman. And he was able to show it. He's 6'1". He was able to show it in the college game, but I think he's physical enough to show it in the professional game. I love this wide receiver.
According to the NFL mock draft database, a lot of the pundits out there have him as a 4th round pick, 5th round pick. I see some people have him in the 7th. Some people have him in the 2nd and 3rd as well. So kind of all over the place. We'll see where he ends up. But based on that scatter shot of where he's expected to go, you could get a nice value on him in Dynasty rookie drafts. You'll definitely get a nice value on him in the Never-too-Early tournament right now. Currently, Ricky Pearsall has in FFPC Never-too-Early Best Ball Tournament ADP of, if my computer would work properly here, which it's not, wide receiver 72 in the early 16th round of those Never-too-Early drafts. So
and that's consistent with where he went down here on Super Bowl weekend, and guys were, and so he hasn't had a bump from his combine performance, but one of the scout terms that I've missing for the last couple of years, I haven't been at the combine, and you always love to hear it, is, wow, that player really helped himself. And that's what you hear about this guy. He really helped himself. And that's enough. It means that everybody thinks more of him after they left and when they got there. So he had mission accomplished.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I'd love to get to some more emails. We're running out of time here, so I'm going to save those for next week. Thank God they're not time sensitive. Otherwise, we'd have to go a little overtime tonight. But Ferrell, I do want to thank you for hanging out with me tonight, talking fantasy football as we always do. I know it's been a busy week for you. We will do this again next Friday. It's going to be a lot of fun. And we will continue to check out the KFFSC.com, KFFSC.com. Register for those leagues that are going on there right now. Thank you so much, man. Have a great evening. Talk to you again soon.
See you, buddy.
That is Ferrell Elliott, ladies and gentlemen, the definitive commissioner of fantasy football. I want to thank him. I want to thank tonight's guest, Erik Hove. I want to thank the FFPC, Rob, Bryce, and, of course, each and every one of you for hopping aboard. Now, the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour will be back next Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern. We will have on 11-time FFPC Dynasty champ Michael Stiavnicki. I believe Stiavnicki. I believe I'm pronouncing that correctly. I hope I didn't butcher it. I apologize, Michael, if I did. But he will be coming on next Friday to talk about his dynasty success. In case you missed the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show last night on the Better Sports Network, check it out on any of the FFPC socials. The replay is there. Destination Debbie and Dynasty Trades in 5. Scott Connor was my guest co-host. And then this coming Thursday at 7 o'clock, we'll do 2 full hours again with Dynasty Depot's Nelson Verbit. So that's going to be a lot of fun as well. RotoViz High Stakes Lowdown is available for replay, rotoviz.com/podcast, or if you want to watch the video version, any of the FFPC socials. We'll have myself and Greg McLean on, a longtime FFPC player and a multi-league dynasty champion in the FFPC. A lot of fun. You will not regret watching that for sure. The 2024 FantasyPros Championship is live. A $1 million grand prize along with a $6 million prize pool right now is available at myffpc.com. And while you're there, you can register for those Never-too-Early tournaments as well. $125 entry fee will get you in the classic Never-too-Early Best Ball Tournament for a $25,000 grand prize. You can also play in the Never-too-Early Superflex Best Ball Tournament. $35 to enter that, and you could still win a $10,000 first place prize there as well. MyFFPC.com is also your home for Dynasty Fantasy Football. Check that out at myffpc.com. Plenty of Dynasty orphans up there from the $77 level all the way up to the $12.50 level. Might even have some 2500s, and a lot of them are discounted right now too, some as low as $1, so you can cash in on some value. Play fantasy football 365 days a year. Play fantasy football whenever you want at myffpc.com. Myffpc.com is where to go for that. Remember to like this video, subscribe to the channel, comment on the video, share it with your friends, share it with your enemies, and get notified every time we go live, which will be once again next Thursday at 7 o'clock, myself and Nelson Verbit on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Show. The show will go live again Friday at 10 o'clock Eastern Time with me, with Ferrell Elliott, and with Michael Stiavnicki, which I probably pronounced it like 4 different times, and I apologize. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. Be good. We'll talk with you again next week at 10 p.m. Eastern Time.
This has been another episode of the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour presented by myffpc.com. It was broadcast live and was watched around the world. Balky and Ferrell will be back next week with more analysis, more interviews, and more advice from guests much smarter than they are. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk with you again next week.
One other thing I'll bring up, our good buddy Al Paul in the chat room tonight. We did not get to his Justin Fields question, but I think that's going to be pretty compelling once free agency starts. So we might have a better answer and more information on it coming up on next Friday's show. So Al, I know will be in the YouTube chat as well. Hopefully you'll be hanging out with them in the Facebook and the Twitter and the X and everything on the High Stakes Fantasy Football Hour. Be good, everybody. We'll talk with you again next week.